Shabbat Shalom. Good morning. I'm Rabbi Jenny Greenspan, joined by Cantor Melissa Cohen, and we are here to do our Shabbat morning service for Beth-El Zedek here in Indianapolis. If you haven't already got them already downloaded on your devices at home and would like to, if you go over to the bez613.org and select the virtual Shabbat resources and scroll down toward the bottom of that page, we have the Lev Shalem Sidur that we will be using this evening, or this morning. It's not evening yet. No. This morning available for you, as well as the Torah reading and Haftorah reading selections that we will be doing later on. So if you want to take a moment to download those and have those ready for when we get to the Torah service, we can. Otherwise, we will begin with the Lev Shalem Sidur on page 103 with the Birkot HaShachar, our blessings for a new day, page 103.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lasech vivina להבחין בין יום ובין לילה.
אמן.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam שעשני בצלמו.
אמן.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam שעשני בת חורין.
אמן.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam שעשני ישראל.
אמן.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam פוקח עברים.
אמן.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam מלביש הברומים.
אמן.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam מתיר אסורים.
אמן.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam זוקף כפופים.
אמן.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam רוקה הארץ על המים.
אמן.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam המכין מצדק עבר.
אמן.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam שעשה לי כל צורכי.
אמן.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam עוזר ישראל בגבורה.
אמן.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam עוטר ישראל בתפארה.
אמן.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam הנותן ליעף כוח.
Amen. Continue on page 113 with the psalm for the season, the psalm that we recite during Elul and leading into the high holidays. We are closing in just 1 week from Rosh Hashanah. Page 113 will join with Lulei He'emanti, the final two lines in the Hebrew.
Lulei he'emanti לראות בטוב אדוני בארץ חיים, בארץ חיים, קווה אל אדוני, קווה אל אדוני, קווה אל אדוני, קווה אל אדוני.
Continue on page 122 with Baruch She'amar, blessed is the one who spoke and creation was, recognizing that though we are in the image of God, only God was able to create by speech alone. Page 122, Baruch She'amar.
Baruch she'amar v'haya ha'olam, Baruch hu, Baruch oseh bereshit, Baruch omer oseh, Baruch ozer umkayim, Baruch merachem al haaretz, Baruch merachem al habriot, Baruch meshalim sachar tov lireyav, Baruch alad v'kayam la'netzach, Baruch hodeh u'matzil, Baruch shemo.
Continue on page 136 with Ashrei, a responsive psalm, excited at the beauty of getting to be together in our homes, whichever homes those might be. Page 136.
אשרי יושבי ביתך הוד יהללוך סלע.
אשרי העם שככה לו, אשרי העם שאדוני אלוהיו.
תהילה לדוד, אברמימך אלוהי המלך, ואברך שמך לעולם ועד.
בכל יום אברכך, ועלה שמך לעולם ועד.
גדול אדוני ומולל מאוד, ולגדולתו אין חקר.
דור לדור ישבח מעשיך, וגבורותיך יגידו.
הדר כבוד הודך, ודברי נפלאותיך עשיך.
ועזוז נורותיך יאמרו, ודלתך אספרנה.
זכר רב טובך יביעו, וצדקתך ירננו.
חנון ורחום אדוני, ערך אפיים וגדל חסד.
טוב אדוני לכל, ורחמיו על כל מעשיו.
יודוך אדוני כל מעשיך, וחסידיך יברכוך.
כבוד מלכותך יאמרו, וגבורתך ידברו.
להודיע לבני האדם גבורותיו, וכבוד הדר מלכותו.
מלכותך מלכות כל עולמים, וממשלתך בכל דור ודור.
סומך אדוני לכל הנופלים, וזוקף לכל הכפופים.
הנה כל אליך יסברו, ואתה נותן להם את אוכלם בעיתו.
פותח את ידיך, ומסביר לכל הרצון.
צדיק אדוני בכל דרכיו, וחסיד בכל מעשיו.
קרוב אדוני לכל קוראיו, לכל אשר יקראו באמת.
רצון יראיו יעשה, ואת שבתם ישמע ויושיעם.
שומר אדוני את כל אוהביו, ואת כל שיים ישמיד.
תהילת אדוני ידבר פיי, ויברך כל בשר שם קודשו לעולם ועד. ואנחנו נברך יה, מעתה ועד עולם. Hallelujah.
We conclude our section of morning psalms and enter into the core of our morning prayer service on page 150 with a blessing of Yotzer Or, a blessing where we praise God for creating light and creating darkness, and I think for us also creating the ability to see between the two and to find the light. We turn to page 150 for the blessing Yotzer Or.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, yotzer or uvoreh choshech, oseh shalom uvoreh et hakol.
Amen. Please join me on page 154. We'll begin in the English and transition to the Hebrew. You have loved us deeply, Adonai our God, and showered us with boundless compassion. Avinu Malkeinu, for the sake of our ancestors who trusted in you, and to whom you taught the laws of life, so may you be gracious to us and instruct us. Kind Creator, have compassion for us. Open our hearts so that we may understand and discern, hear and study, observe, perform, and fulfill all of the teachings of your Torah with love. Enlighten our eyes with your Torah, attach our hearts to your mitzvot. Unify our hearts to love and revere your name so that we may never lose hope. As we trust in your great, holy, awe-inspiring name, we will delight and rejoice in your deliverance. Continue in the Hebrew.
Baruch atah Adonai, abocher be'amo Yisrael be'ahava.
Amen. We turn to page 155 for the Shema, the declaration of God's oneness and our hope for our own oneness. Page 155, Shema and into the Ahavta on the next page.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבביך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך והיה. למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
We continue on page 158 with Micha Mocha, a song which celebrates our freedom and our coming together as a people and no longer as slaves in Egypt. Page 158, Micha Mocha.
Micha Mocha, Ba'elim Adonai, Micha Mocha, Nehedar B'Kodesh, Nora Tehilot, O Seifel, Shira Chadasha, Shibehu Geulim Lashimaka, Al Safatayam, Yachad Kulam, Odu Vehimlichu, Ve'ameru, Adonai Maloch, Leolam Ba'ed, Zur Yisrael Kuma, Be'ezrat Yisrael, Ufedichinu Meka, Yehuda ve'Yisrael. Go Aleinu, Adonai Tzebaot Shemo, Kedosh, Kedosh, Yisrael, Baruch atah Adonai,
Baruch Hu Baruch Shemo,
Ga'al Yisrael.
Amen. We turn to page 159. We will do the opening blessing of the Amidah together and then give some space for our silent Amidah. If you'd prefer to use the book's words, the words of tradition, they will continue through page 166 of your Siddur, or after we do the opening blessing together. Please feel free to infuse the words of your own heart into the silent prayer. I invite you, if you are able, to please rise in your place and join us on page 159.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Eloi avotenu ve'imotenu, Eloi Avraham, Eloi Yitzchak, Eloi Yaakov, Eloi Sarah, Eloi Rivka, Eloi Rachel, Eloi Leah, Hayel HaGadol, HaGibor ve'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim ve'Konei HaKol, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואמות, ומביא גואל לבני בניהם למען שמו באהבה, מלך עושה ומושיע ומגן. ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה.
Amen. Continue silently. conclude our Amidah with Oseh Shalom on page 166, the very bottom.
עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמרו אמין. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael.
May the one who creates peace on high bring peace to us and to all Israel and all who dwell on earth. And we say, Amen. I'm going to invite you to stay standing a few moments longer as we transition to the service for taking out of our Torah. I have not forgotten this week to tell you when you may be seated again. Just a few moments longer, we turn to page 168 for Ein Kamocha as we remove the Sefer Torah from the Ark. Page 168.
Ein kamocha v'Elohim Adonai ve'ein kema'asecha מלכותך, מלכות כל עולמים, וממשלתך בכל דור ודור. אדוני מלך, אדוני מלך, אדוני מלוך לעולם ועד. אדוני עוז לעמודים, אדוני יברך את עמו Vashalom, ki mitzion titzei Torah, ki mitzion titzei Torah, udevar Adonai mirushalayim, Baruch shenatan Torah, Torah, Baruch shenatan Torah, Torah, le'amo Yisrael, b'kedushato. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adoninu, Kadosh Shemo.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adoninu, Kadosh Shemo.
Gadlul Adonai Yitin Rumema, Shemo Yadav.
As the Torah is placed on the table where it will be read in a few moments, you may be seated if you are still standing in your place. This morning we are reading a double Torah portion. We are very close to the end of the book of Deuteronomy, and therefore also very close to the end of the Torah itself in our cycle. We have just two more Torah portions after these two. This morning we are reading Nitzavim and Vayelech, the portion where the Israelites are standing at the edge of the river, ready to cross into the land that God has promised them. And in Vayelech, Moses passes the leadership torch over to Joshua, who will be the leader in the land. And so we are standing on that precipice. As I shared in my Torah talk, I think that was an intentional move of the rabbis and how they divided these later Torah portions, that we should be standing on the precipice of entering the land on the week before Rosh Hashanah, when we are standing on the precipice of a new year. And there is a passage that I want to focus on again if you watched my Torah talk, but we're going to look at it a little bit differently this time. We are in Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 11. Surely this instruction which I enjoin upon you this day is not too baffling for you, nor beyond your reach. It is not in the heavens that you should say, who could go get it for us? Who can impart it? Who can go up there? Neither is it beyond the sea that you would say, who among us can cross to the other side of the sea and get it for us and impart it to us, that we may observe it. No, the thing is very close to you, in your mouth and in your heart. so that you may observe it or you do it. So the classic commentaries will debate over which instruction, what is this thing that is very close to you. If you want to watch my Torah talk, I shared an interpretation looking at this thing as teshuvah, as this process that we are in Elul right now. We're getting ready for the new year, a process of return. But many commentators, and one of the most famous stories in the Talmud, in fact, switch this to say the Torah got a little bit meta here, and suddenly the Torah is talking about the Torah. It is the Torah itself that is very close to you, that you don't need to try to figure out a way to go up to heaven or to cross the ocean to find, but it in fact is right there. And lo bashamayim hi, it is not in the heavens. This sparks one of my favorite Talmud stories, which is in Masechet Bava Metzia on page 59, if you feel like looking it up on Sefaria or another Talmud source. And we have a group of rabbis who are debating a point of halakha about an oven and whether or not it's kosher. The specific details of what they're debating is actually not very important for this story. But they're debating, and a whole group of these rabbis say, no, it's this way. And one of them, Rabbi Eliezer, says, nuh-uh, you are all wrong, it's this way. One person and a group of people. And Rabbi Eliezer is so certain of his position that he says, if the law is like what I say, this carob tree will prove it. And the carob tree uproots itself and jumps 100 cubits, so probably about 150 feet away. And then others say actually it was 400 cubits, so really like 550 feet away. And the rest of the rabbis said, there's no proof from that. That's just a carob tree jumping around. We're still right, all of us. Rabbi Eliezer comes back and says, no, if the law is like me, this water channel will prove it. And the river reverses direction. And again, the rest of the rabbis we don't take proof from that. We don't take proof from miracles. This is us. We, the rabbis, decide how we bring Torah into the world. So Rabbi Eliezer says, no, I'm certain. If I'm right, the walls of the sanctuary are going to lean in, and they do. They start leaning in toward everyone, which is a little bit scary, but because of the merits of one of the other rabbis, they don't lean in all the way. It doesn't collapse, but the Talmud, in a very legendary flair, says the walls of that particular sanctuary and study house are still leaned to this day. And still, nope, everybody says, no, Rabbi Eliezer, you're not right. Rabbi Eliezer finally says, if I'm right, God's going to just start saying so. And it does, and God does. A heavenly voice comes out and says, Rabbi Eliezer is right. And the rest of the rabbis turn to God and say, this verse from today's Torah portion, Lo bashamayim hi. The Torah isn't in heaven, it's ours. They're saying, God, you gave it to us. You no longer get to have an overriding vote on how Judaism functions in the world, on how the Torah works. We, as a community, come together and figure out what's best for us, and we enact the laws and the rituals and the traditions in the best way for us. And so there are two lessons in this. One is that God does not get an overriding vote on what Judaism is in the world today. In fact, at the very conclusion of the story, God laughs and says, my children have outwitted me. They've triumphed. God laughs, says, okay, you win. And the other group, it is the group of rabbis who decide. Rabbi Eliezer has a lone opinion, a singular opinion, and even if God agreed with him, the one opinion doesn't outweigh the group opinion. And that is one of the goals of Rabbinic Judaism, is that we discuss it together, that we learn Torah together, and we figure out together what this Torah that is right here on our tables and in our hands, what it means and how we can do it together. This has been a year that we have, as a Jewish people, nationwide and worldwide, all had to come about looking at different ways of how we together can still enact the Torah and be a community. Because it is right here, even in the hardest times. It is right here. Lo bashamayim hi. It is not in the heavens. It's here on our table. Our Torah reading today will be, if you have an Etz Chaim Chumash, we'll begin on page 1165, and then we'll go to a selection on 1169. And if you earlier downloaded the Torah readings from the resources page on our website, you'll be able to just follow with each section. All of the selections are there, prepared by Ken or Melissa for us. So we will begin in just a moment. And I would like to call upon all of our community, Ya'amdu, Kol HaKehilat Beth-El Tzedek, Ve'ha'orchim Shalanu. Please, all of the congregation, Beth-El Tzedek, joining us, and any guests joining us from afar as well. Let us say the blessing as we receive this Torah right here. Baruchu et Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Atem nitzavim hayom kulachem lifnei Adonai Elohechem, rashechem shiftechem siknechem v'shotrechem kol ish Yisrael, tapachem neshechem v'gehercha asher bekerev mechanecha, mechotehiv itzacha ad sho'ev meimecha. Le'ovrecha b'ivrit Adonai Elohecha uv'aloto, asher Adonai Elohecha koret imaka hayom, lema'an hakim otcha hayom lo le'am ve'hu yela lecha le'elohim ka'asher diber lach, וכאשר נשבע לאבותיך לאברהם, ליצחק וליעקב ולא איתכם לבדכם אנוכי כורת את הברית הזאת ואת העלה הזאת, כי את אשר ישנו פה עמנו עומד היום לפני אדוני אלוהינו, ואת אשר איננו פה עמנו היום. והיה כי יבואו עליך כל הדברים האלה, הברכה והקללה אשר נתתי לפניך, השבותה על לבביך, וכל הגויים אשר ידיחך אדוני אלוהיך שמה, ושבת עד אדוני אלוהיך ושמעת בקולו, ככל אשר אנוכי מצווך היום, אתה ובניך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך, ושב אדוני אלוהיך את שבותך וריחמך ושב, וקיבצך מכל העמים אשר הפיצך אדוני אלוהיך שמה, כי המצווה הזאת אשר אנוכי מצווך היום, לא נפלאתי ממך ולא רחוקה היא, לא בשמיים היא לאמור, מי יעלה לנו השמיימה ויקחך לנו וישמיענו אותה ונעשנה, ולא מעבר לים היא לאמור, מי יעבר לנו אל עבר הים ויקחך לנו וישמיענו אותה ונעשנה, כי קרוב אליך הדבר מאוד בפיך ובלבבך לעשותו.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu torat emet, v'chayei olam nata betochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
I invite you to please rise as we acknowledge the Torah and lift her to dress her and put her back into the ark in a few moments.
וזאת התורה אשר שם משה לפני בני ישראל על פי אדוני ביד משה.
Torah, 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 Tziva lanu Moshe. Torah, 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 Tziva lanu Moshe. Torah, 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 Tziva lanu Moshe. Torah, 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 Tziva lanu Moshe. Our Haftarah today will be from the book of Isaiah. We'll be doing selections from 61, 62, and 63, so I encourage you to take a look at the sheet with our selections for the Haftarah today. This is the final Haftarah of consolation after Tisha B'Av, and in this one we are looking at a future where we are fully espoused to God. We're true partners with God. There are many metaphors used of the relationship between human beings and God. Some are, as we will see in the High Holiday Liturgy, parent and child, and this Haftarah gives us a future look where we're truly partners with God, espoused together, enclosed and wrapped in God's embrace as partners and as lovers. Our Haftarah today will begin with Isaiah chapter 61, verse 10.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar b'nvi'im tovim, v'ratza v'divreihem, הנאמרים באמת. Baruch atah Adonai, הבוחר בתורה ובמשה עבדו, ובישראל עמו, ובנביאי האמת והצדק. שוש אסיס באדוני, תגל נפשי באלוהי, כי ילבשני בגדי ישע, מעיל צדקה יתני, כחתן יכהן פאר, וככלה תדרך אליה. כי הארץ תוציא צמחה וכגנה, זרועיה תצמיח כן. אדוני אלוהים יצמיח צדקה ותהילה נגד כל הגויים. לא יאמר לך עוד עזובה, ולארצך לא יאמר עוד שממה, כי לך יקרא קציבה, ולארצך בעולה, כי חפץ אדוני בך, וארצך תיבעל. כי יבעל בחור בתולה, ובלוך בנייך, ומשוש חתן על כלה, יסיס עלייך אלוהייך. הנה אדוני השמיע אל קצה הארץ, אמרו לבת ציון, הנה אישך בא, הנה שכרו איתו ופעולתו לפניו. וקראו להם עם הקודש, קראו לאדוני, ולך יקרא דרושה עיר לא נעזבה. חסדי אדוני אזכיר תהילות אדוני כעל, כל אשר גמלנו אדוני, ורב טוב לבית ישראל אשר גמלם כרחמיו וכרוב חסדיו. ויאמר אך עמי הם הבנים לא ישקרו, ויהי להם למושיעה. בכל צרתם לא צר, ומלאך פניו הושיעם, באהבתו ובחמלתו הוא גאלם. וינצלם וינשאם כל ימי עולם. על התורה ועל העבודה ועל הנביאים ועל יום השבת הזה שנתת לנו אדוני אלוהינו לקדושה ולמנוחה לכבוד ולתפארת. על הכל אדוני אלוהינו אנחנו מודים לך ומברכים אותך יתברך שמך בפי כל חי תמיד לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני
ברוך הוא ברוך שמו
מקדיש השבת.
Amen. We rise once again as we turn to page 183 for the service of returning the Torah to the Ark. We'll go from 183 onto page 184, Yehalelu to Etz Chaim Hi.
Yehalelu et Shem Adonai ki nizkar shemo levado Etz Chaim Hi
למחזיקימה בתומכיה מאושר
דרכיה דרכי נועם בכל נתיבותיה שלום. השיבינו אדוני אליך ונשובה חדש ימינו כקדם.
You may be seated. We turn to page 204 for Ein Keloheinu as we move into the conclusion of our service. 204, Ein Keloheinu, there is no one like God.
Ein Keloheinu, Ein Kadonenu, Ein Kemalkeinu, Ein Kamoshienu, Mi Keloheinu, Mi Kadonenu, Mi Kemalkeinu, Mi Kamoshienu. נודה לאלוהינו, נודה לאדוננו, נודה למלכנו, נודה למושיענו. ברוך אלוהינו, ברוך אדוננו, ברוך מלכנו, ברוך מושיענו. אתה הוא אלוהינו, אתה הוא אדוננו, אתה הוא מלכנו, אתה הוא מושיענו.
In reciting the Mourner's Kaddish, we affirm our awareness of holiness in our world. Much of our experience of divine goodness, grace, and love come to us through those whose lives have touched our own. And we invoke the transcendent power of love and caring as we sanctify God's name. This week, I would encourage all of us to remain standing. I forgot Elena.
That's okay, we're good. Just keep.
Okay. I encourage all of us to please rise for the Mourner's Kaddish. This week I encourage all of us to rise, both in memory of the 19th anniversary of the attacks on 9/11/01 on September 11th of 2001, in which thousands of American lives were lost. And for our community a little closer, this is also the yard site of Cantor Ray Edgar, Cantor of beloved memory here. And so this week I encourage all of our community to please rise for the Mourner's Kaddish and join me on page 207. Yitgadal ve'yitkadash shemei Rabbah,
Amen.
ve'elma divrach chirutei ve'amlich malchutei, v'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chayei zechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uvizman kariv ve'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam ulmei almaya. Yitbarach ve'yishtabach ve'yitba'ar ve'yitramam ve'yitnaseh, ve'yitadar ve'yitaleh ve'yitalal, shemei dekudesha barichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, Tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma ve'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel ve'imru amen. May the one who creates peace on high bring peace to us and to all Israel and to all who dwell on earth. And let us say amen.
Amen.
You may be seated, unless you want to do it later.
We're okay. Lo hashamayim.
Lo bashmayim. We're rolling with it. Lo bashmayim. This is where we are this week, preparing for the high holidays. Before we move into our closing song, a few announcements. I hope you all will join us this evening and on Zoom and on live stream for Selichot. We will have a panel on Zoom welcoming in the new year and learning from a few people in our community, and just having a lovely Zoom sort of cocktail Judaism panel program.
Style, yep.
Program as we often do before our Slichot services.
And that'll be moderated by Rabbi Dennis, and we have Deetra Mills and Aaron Carroll and Janet Allen speaking about different aspects from their specialties and how they all are going to integrate with one another with our current situation and what to look forward to in the new year and how everything is going to affect us.
Yeah,
So
we've been
looking forward to hearing from them and their opinions and outlooks.
Yeah, so please do join us on Zoom at 7:30 to hear that and to hear all of the different those different ways of integrating just the way our lives are, integrating all of what's been going on in the world for at least half of this past year. And then at the end of that Zoom, we will tell you when we will switch over to the live stream that you are watching right now from the sanctuary.
Yep.
And we will see you there.
For Slichot,
for our Slichot liturgy
service, and that will be at 8:45.
At 8:45. So we'll give you some time, a little bit of time in between, but we'll have the two will both be tonight. And of course, Rosh Hashanah coming up next week. So 6 o'clock next Friday will be both a Shabbat and Rosh Hashanah service and celebration, and into our Rosh Hashanah services next Saturday and Sunday mornings. So we hope you will join us for our great event this evening.
I love this Slichot service too. It's like all of High Holidays wrapped up in one capsule.
Neat little
It's a
package.
neat little package, so beautiful, with lots of beautiful music and beautiful readings, all packaged nicely together. So yes, if you've never been, please join us tonight from your couch. Live stream.
We look forward to having you. Enjoying our Slichot, our final push to the high holidays. This morning we will conclude our service with America the Beautiful, again in commemoration of the 19th anniversary of September 11th, 2001.
Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountain majesties above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed his grace on thee, and crown thy good with humanhood from sea to shining sea.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will look forward to seeing you later on this evening on Zoom and on live stream. Shabbat Shalom. Please enjoy the rest of your Shabbat today.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.